A wild Matthew Stafford rumor, 3 keys to him having a big bounce back season, and will he retire Ram? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley? Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you want to find the video version of the show, find us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and let us know. We want all your Matthew Stafford thoughts. Do you believe this rumor? What do you think his stats will look like in 2023? My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, the Lakers for SI, the Dodgers for Dodgers Nation, and now I'm covering the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by Mr. Travis Rogers, the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 8th season with the team, and you can follow him on Twitter at Travis Rogers. Now, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Now, on today's show, will Matthew Stafford retire as a Ram? The keys to Stafford having a big bounce back here in 2023, and an NFL insider's wild rumor about Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
But first, Travis, I saw this on Twitter this weekend. A lot of people were talking about it, and the question was, would you rather A, be given $1 million, or B, have 10 carries in an NFL game to gain 5 for $10 million? So for me, give me the rock, okay? That's the easiest $10 million I'll ever make.
So I got to make 5 yards and 10 carries?
So you have 10 carries in an NFL game to gain 5 yards for $10 million or be given $1 million.
Unless I'm running behind an offensive line made up of 5 Hall of Famers, it's not happening. I'm not getting the edge. I'm not sticking my face in that A gap. It's just I'm going to take the one, and you'll never see me again.
I'm telling you, it'll be easy $10 million. Just give me right to that B gap. I'll get to pick my offensive line. No, okay, look, I did play JV football as a senior, and I'd probably get Jadeveon Clowney there. Most of that $10 million would probably go to medical bills. I'd be in the ICU. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think these guys make it look easy. But we got to talk about this first rumor we're going to get into. We're talking about Matthew Stafford once again. We talked about this a few months ago, but it has resurfaced. So the Rams, of course, have Matthew Stafford under contract through 2026. LA signed Stafford to a 4-year, $160 million extension in May of 2022. And Michael Lombardi, he was on the Pat McAfee show last week, and he doubled down on what he said back in March, that the Rams made attempts to trade Matthew Stafford, saying, quote, when his option bonus was getting ready to kick in, they attempted with a lot of effort to trade him. Any team could have had him. The problem was you had to absorb the $59 million, and the Rams knew there was no way around the $59 million. They couldn't get around it unless they traded him and somebody else took it. So I look at this. First thing I want to say is, where are the other insiders confirming this? Because usually when you have a rumor like this, you'll have the Schefters, the Rappaports, the Glazers, the Pelisaros. They'll back it up in some form or fashion, but I just don't necessarily believe this rumor to be 100% true.
Yeah, how aggressively maybe they tried to do it or didn't do it, who knows? It could be one of those things where Les Snead is having conversations with other general managers on other teams, and the conversation of quarterbacks comes up, and you can float the idea of, hey, would you be interested? And no, not really. Or yeah, maybe under the right set of circumstances. It could be a very casual thing that gets brought up that you're not actively trying to move him. Or it could have been exactly what Lombardi is talking about, which is they wanted to move on. I mean, you look at what this team has been, you look at what this team is, and you look at what they're hoping to become. They're kind of in a transition period. And Matthew Stafford is still a very, very good player. He's still an incredibly important part of what they're doing right now. But I don't know if he's going to be a part of the next great version of Rams teams. And if they can get started on that a little bit earlier, maybe they were moving around. I don't think it's the end of the world that you're taking phone calls, that you're making suggestions. It doesn't mean that you're trying to shove him out the door. It means that if the perfect opportunity presents itself, you're willing to listen to it. He's still here. He's going to play. I think he'll play pretty well. But it didn't shock me that put it this way. I'm willing to believe that it's at least potentially true, that maybe that they looked at it. But, I think that's the role of any good front office personnel. I think that this is what you do, that you always listen. You're willing to hear what other people have to say. And that's how you build a good team.
To your point, yeah, I think there's no doubt about this is an organization that they've been active on the trade market just about as much as any organization in the sport. So to think it's ridiculous that they picked up a call and at least had a discussion about the availability of Matthew Stafford, I think that's plausible. But to say they were feverishly going out there and trying to trade him and that any team could have had him, that's where I push back on the idea. You mean to tell me the Atlanta Falcons don't want to have Desmond Ridder as their cornerback and have a lot of offensive weapons, wouldn't like to have Matthew Stafford? I just find it hard to believe. But yeah, I mean, I guess when you consider his injuries last year, maybe
that's the thing, right? It's the health combined with the age, combined with the price that makes it a little bit daunting if you're a team like Atlanta, right? That the perfect situation is where he came to a couple of years ago. The perfect situation was a place like the Rams that have a go for it mentality, have an FM picks mentality, have an idea of, we're all in right now, that whatever happens 2, 3, 5 years from now isn't nearly as important as what happens this season. They were ready to go. They just needed a quarterback. They had the money and they made the move. Well, I don't know if there's a team that's like the 2021 Rams that's sitting out there right now saying, hey, look, if we just get our quarterback, we're ready to go. So I think the market, I think that's the market for him far more than whether or not he can play. He can obviously still play. He's still a really, really good player. It's just a matter of that price, that age, and where your team is.
Exactly. If teams are thinking they're getting damaged goods, Matthew Stafford, a guy that he had issues throwing last year, they were saying he couldn't throw the football, and you really don't know his medicals until you get him in your possession after you make that trade. But I also think the big reasons why I don't think that there was a lot of smoke to this, and in my other show, my Dodgers show, there's a lot of rumors, a lot of trade rumors, and I have this thing called the Dodgers rumor meter where I rank all the rumors with Dodger dogs by how legit they are. So a 5 Dodger dog would be a legit rumor. A 1 Dodger dog I call a Buster Phony Jet Passin, where it's not the real name. It's like those Twitter fake accounts. This one I would say it's close to the 1.5, just because, look, I mean, $74 million in dead money is a lot. $54 million off the cap, you understand, but still, if you want to move off him, they would have done it already. You would have done it before the draft, like you said. And I think if you're Matthew Stafford and you're the Rams, there's this buzzword going around in football, Travis, this offseason, and it's competitive rebuild. You talk about the Buccaneers, the Vikings, the competitive rebuild. And I still believe that this franchise realized that, hey, franchise quarterbacks don't grow on trees. Ask the 49ers, ask the Dolphins, who've had 22 quarterbacks since Dan Marino. I think they truly believe that next year, with almost $60 million in cap space, that they can make one more run with this core of Cup, Donald, and Stafford.
Yeah, I think that they certainly are going to do that, but I keep going back. I would give it a second Dodger dog. If to use the D-Max scale, I would give it a second dog for no other reason than looking at what they did with the rest of their roster. This was not, they were not collecting assets, they were distributing them. This was not a team that was, okay, let's hold on to this, let's run it back, let's do it one more time. It was more, hey, you need Bobby Wagner, thank you, but this isn't really where we're going. And Jalen Ramsey, we know all the guys that left. And that at least the phone was up to somebody's ear talking about Matthew Stafford. I'm willing to entertain the prospect. I'm glad he's still here. I'm glad that this is the guy that they're going to play this season with. I'm glad that they do have that competitive rebuild thing in mind, the way you're talking about it, that if things break correctly for them, they're in a pretty good spot. But I don't completely dismiss that at least it was talked about at some level. And if they could get somebody else to take the money, something they might have considered.
No, to your point, I think you're absolutely correct in that, hey, you're doing your due diligence as a front office by listening to everything. You definitely want that versus the other thing where you're not exploring any possibilities. But I also believe, you did get rid of Jalen Ramsey and Bobby Wagner. Of course, Allen Robinson is gone. And it looked like it was a sell-off. But I also think they realized the picks are there. The cap space is there. And you just can't find franchise quarterbacks. These guys do not grow on trees. And you're not relevant in the NFL unless you have one. I think Matthew Stafford, they feel like he's still still have some left in the tank and they can make another run. But we're going to talk about, like you said, he could have a bounce back year. How could he have that bounce back year? What are the big keys to Stafford having a better year next year? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Before we do that, D-Mac, let's talk a little bit about our friends at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. So you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out the LinkedIn Jobs, right? LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. If you've ever tried to go out into the hiring market, you know how challenging it can be to find the right person, to interview the right person, to just kind of collect your little list of people to start for. That is an incredibly challenging thing. Here's how you do it. You post your job for free on LinkedIn Jobs. Then you add your job and the purple hiring hashtag frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. You want to start that year for really incredibly strong and get that football season, kind of that mojo going right there. It's why every small business rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. Also, a special shout out to our everyday listeners who rock with us every single day. And you can be an everyday listener too. Join the club. The membership is free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now, Travis, here in our second segment, we're going to talk about those keys and how Matthew Stafford can have a better year in 2023 and get back to being that guy that was one of the best quarterbacks in the league in his first year with the Rams in 2021. So to me, the #1 key is an improved offensive line. We know the story last year. They were like single-ply toilet paper, right? I mean, they were one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, historically bad. So many combinations, just wasn't protecting him. Last year, Rams quarterbacks were sacked on 9.7% of their pass plays. He was sacked 29 times in 9 games. He was sacked only 30 times in 17 starts in 2021. So you have to keep Matthew Stafford upright. That is the top priority.
Yeah, look, this is the most important thing for all 32 teams in this league. Give your quarterback just enough time to make a decision and make a throw. If the first thought through the quarterback's head is, okay, where's the heat coming from? It's not going to work. And that's what it was last year. You've heard me say it before, and I'll talk year, I think hopefully has no connectivity to what happens this year. So I think you're right. #1, the offensive line needs to be a lot better. Something else that I would throw in there, and maybe it's a little counterintuitive, I think the sort of year he has is going to be dependent on how good the defense is. If the defense is at least mediocre, it allows him to be a little bit more traditional in the way that he goes about things. If the defense is bad, if the defense is as thin on talent as a lot of people think it might be, and they're giving up 28, 35, 38 points a game, it's going to put an incredible amount of pressure on the offense, an incredible amount of pressure on Matthew Stafford in particular, which means he's going to have to take chances, which means interceptions are going to come, which means all sorts of crazy stuff starts happening. So if that defense can be at least mediocre, league average, then I think he's got a chance to have a great season in conjunction with that offensive line being a lot better.
That's a great point. I didn't really think about that as far as just the psychological benefits, kind of going back to your original point of, hey, mentally, if you're worried about getting another concussion or spinal contusion, you're not going to be at your best self there in the pocket. And also defensively, you need those guys to step up. They can't be the worst in the league, which is what they're projected to be right now. It's almost like, hey, this Dodgers offense, they're great, but you need the pitching to step up because you're not going to score 7, 8, 9, 10 runs every single night, right? So, I agree with you. The defense has to step up in a major way.
Yeah, no, I love that analogy. Like, it's great that you score 7, 8 runs a game, but if you're giving up 9, what difference does it make? And it puts an incredible amount of pressure on the offense. And I think this is where Matthew Stafford is great. Just be good, right? Like you think about the time that he spent in Detroit. Those teams were usually average to below average, and it put an incredible amount of pressure on him to try to cover up the difference between, below average to pretty good. when he finally got to LA and the Rams were playing at a high level, all he needed to do was be good. You don't have to be transcendent. You don't have to be fantastic. And he was pretty close to fantastic for most of that year. They win the Super Bowl, but the rest of the talent needs to probably overperform where you think they are right now. I think that's a big part of it. And the other part of it too is you're going to have to find somebody other than Cooper Kupp to play well. That Kupp's going to do what Kupp does. I'd be shocked if Kupp isn't really good all over again. I'd be a little surprised if whoever comes after Kupp, whether it's Jefferson or Atwell or Skoranek or Marcus Robinson or whoever it is that they brought in, some of those guys are going to have to step up because it can't be a one-man show for Cooper Kupp. As much as Matthew Stafford likes him, you're going to have to find someone else to throw the ball to.
That's a fantastic point. You got to have someone else step up. You got to get that true number 2 in Van Jefferson. You need the young guy, Puka Nacua, to maybe do something. Yep. Ben Skoranek, Tutu Atwell. One of those guys is going to have to take a big step forward. One of those guys is going to have a breakthrough season because they're not making a big trade for a wide receiver. They didn't go out there and sign DeAndre Hopkins. You're not going to get the OBJ this season. That's just not going to happen. So one of those guys is going to have to make a leap. And also, I think one of the big ones is they're going to need an improved run game. You got to get back to your roots. That's my big thing. Get back to your running roots if you're this Rams team, because Matthew Stafford, in 30 games with the Rams, regular season and playoffs combined, he's had a 100-yard rusher in a game exactly twice. It was both by Sony Michel back in 2021. That's going to change things. I think schematically, we've seen more traditional drop back, more empty sets with Stafford. So that's taken away from really this combination that we've seen with McVay and the nice marriage between running and passing. But I think they need to get back to their roots, and they're going to do that in a big way with Mike LaFleur.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, when you talk about the schematic differences going into it, I wonder if that doesn't play a part of it as well, D-Mac. Just that Sean McVay, knowing that this season is, I don't know, non-traditional. Maybe that's the best way of putting it, right? That they're not coming in here with a fully loaded arsenal the way that they have in some previous seasons. Maybe he opens it up a little bit. Maybe we see a little bit more innovation. And he's an incredibly innovative guy to begin with. So it's not a criticism as much as it is as let's turn it up even more a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we do see some things like you're talking about, that we know how much he loves that 11 personnel. If we don't see things a little bit differently, maybe we see more protections and keeping that tight end in and giving Matthew Stafford more time along the way in the pocket, that you're going to have to change some things that you did a couple of years ago just because the personnel is so different. And I think that goes the same for the coach too, that maybe the play calling is a little different. It allows him to get going in a way that we really never saw happen last year.
100%. I think that's a part of the reinvigoration, the re-energizing of Sean McVay, knowing the expectations aren't Super Bowl or buzz, and that's going to allow him the freedom, the flexibility to go out there and try some different things and try to get this next chapter of Matthew Stafford where you can optimize him. You have a running game. So yeah, absolutely. I think that those are the big keys right there. Stay healthy. You got to avoid getting banged up. You can't get tortured like he was last season. So improved offensive line, wide receivers outside of Kupp need to step up, establish the running game. And I think you're going to look at a really nice season for Stafford in 2023. But coming up here in our final segment of Locked On Rams, Travis, we're talking about the future of Stafford. Will he retire a Ram, and will he get a statue outside of SoFi one day? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, before we do that, D-Mac, let's talk about bird dogs. This might be my favorite thing in the world. Here's the only bad news about bird dogs is that it's getting warmer, so I can't wear my bird dog sweats as often as I was before. The good news is I've got my bird dogs shorts. Bird dogs make you look good, right? Bird dog stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you that sculpted look, which of course is a big deal to me. Bird dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better, right? I wear them almost every single day. I get home, I take off my work stuff, I put on my bird dog. I get home, I take off my work stuff, I put on my bird dogs, and I start drinking out of my bird dogs tumbler. You can do all of this as well. You go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL and enter the promo code LockedOnNFL for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL or promo code LockedOnNFL for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You do not want to take your bird dogs off. I promise you, it's not me selling you something. I wear them almost every single day. They're that comfortable. It's my favorite pair of shorts. It's my favorite pair of pants. Get yourself to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL and get yourself the most comfortable pair of shorts and pants you've ever had.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. And a special shout out to those everyday listeners. We appreciate you guys rocking with us every single day. And you can be an everyday listener too. Be sure to subscribe, listen every day, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. And another reminder too, if you want to check out the video version of the show, find us on YouTube, join the party, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Just past 7K subscribers, all thanks to you. And we want all your thoughts on Matthew Stafford heading into the 2023 season. But we're talking future Matthew Stafford. Travis, here in our final segment, will he retire as a Los Angeles Ram? Does he deserve a statue? My take on that is, look, when it comes to will he retire as a Ram, that's going to depend on if they trade him or not. If they trade him, they decide, hey, we're going to move off him and trade him. That's a possibility. But other than that, I think there's a possibility. I mean, he's under contract until 2026. It really comes down to what happens in 2024. Do they reload? Do you get the weapons? Do you make another Super Bowl run? And then after that, I think, hey, you could kind of ride off to the sunset in LA.
Yeah, it's a really complicated question. I think if I had to place a bet, I think that I probably see him in another uniform before it's all said and done. That being said, I wouldn't bet much on it because I think his health plays a big part of it. I think that the fact that he won a Super Bowl, I don't think that there's a ton left for him to do in this league, right? This isn't okay, I was in Detroit for a long time. We never really had a great team for a consistent period of time. Came to LA, just missed, never really happened. He got it, right? He has his Super Bowl championship. There's no, I just still need to go do this. Now, what could happen is what we were talking about a couple of segments ago, which would be the team that's this close, the team that's just a quarterback shy, that the Rams are ready to maybe do a more complete rebuild, and they've decided that Matthew Stafford's a not part, whether that's in the middle of this season, whether that's next season, whatever it may be, and then maybe he wants to take one last shot at it. The Rams are incentivized to do the same thing, and you move on from there. I think he's been a great addition to this organization. Obviously, they don't win the Super Bowl without him. He's been a great guy in the community. Everybody seems to really like him. But I can see it. Sometimes you close your eyes and say, could you see, Tom Brady in another uniform? No. Well, that still happened, right? And so guys move around in this league, especially as they get a little older, especially quarterbacks. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him go.
Exactly the point at the end. I mean, Tom Brady as a Buccaneer. We've seen different guys move around this league. Joe Montana with the Chiefs. The list goes on and on. It's not a ridiculous idea to think that Matthew Stafford will end up on another team. That's just what happens in the NFL. It happens in sports. And it's definitely a possibility. But I think you touched on the main point, the most significant one, and that is his health. Health is wealth for Matthew Stafford. If he's healthy, he's out there throwing lasers, throwing darts. He's going to still compete. And I think what it comes down to is legacy-wise, hey, this is a guy who is a fringe Hall of Famer at this point. I don't think it's a slam dunk case, but I think that he's definitely in the red zone. I think he might be on the 10-yard line. You just got to punch it in right there. So if you get to the Hall of Fame, you're going in as a Ram, and I think your legacy is intact. And I think it's cemented here in LA, and that's how you want to be remembered because, hey, we're talking about a guy that is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. The next question becomes, if he does retire a Ram, if he does after he retires and makes the Hall of Fame, does he deserve a statue? Now, I'm a big statue guy. I don't think you just need one statue for every team. I think if you're a Hall of Famer, if you're a guy that has led a franchise to their second Super Bowl, the famous no-look pass, one of the indelible images in Super Bowl history, I'm fine with the Matthew Stafford outside of SoFi, Travis.
Yeah, look, if they want to do it, I'd be there, and I'd clap, and I'd be happy to see it as well. I think maybe my threshold for that kind of stuff is maybe a little bit higher. Look, I am thrilled Matthew Stafford was here and they won a Super. If you ask me 10 years from now, who'd Matthew Stafford play for? I'm going to say the Lions, right? It just he spent so much time there and was a really good player for him. Not unlike what you're talking about with Joe Montana and the Chiefs. Joe Montana goes to Kansas City, they go to an AFC Championship game. I get that he didn't win the Super Bowl. I get that he did win the Super Bowl a million times with the Niners, but there's just some guys in your mind's eye, you think of them with that team. For me, Matthew Stafford, I think of him as a Detroit Lion. I think that the statue thing, that's for the Aaron Donalds of the world, those sorts of guys that, and look, he may go somewhere else as well, but that wouldn't change my opinion there. If they want to do one for the guys that won the Super Bowl, let's do a little Aaron Donald pointing to his ring and Cooper Kupp making the fade and Matthew Stafford throwing the no-look pass. I'm happy to do a little collage of all of them, but I hope he stays here a long time. I hope he plays well. I hope he gets a statue. But if it didn't work out like that, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah, statues are big. I mean, Sean McVay got one for Miami of Ohio, right? He already got a statue. So, yeah, I think that actually that's a great point. I mean, he's definitely has to be after Aaron Donald, possibly Cooper Kupp. I think for me, what I'm looking at is you want to fast track the legacy stuff in LA. You want to establish that tradition in LA. For some franchises, I'm saying, yeah, probably not. You haven't earned that statue yet. And really, in my heart of hearts, I would say another Super Bowl, then you lock that up. I'm okay with the jersey retirement now. Give me another deep Super Bowl run, possibly another ring, and then you definitely have that statue intact. But yeah, the reality is that these guys, they won the most important Super Bowl for this franchise that they've ever won. I mean, when you talk about the importance of that Super Bowl, he was a major contributor to that, and I think that we need to give him his flowers.
Absolutely. I really like that point of it's a little bit of a tricky putt because you don't want to make it to where it's like, well, really, we did that? But you're right. You want to do a thing to kind of create culture, to kind of create history with this version of the Los Angeles Rams. That, I mean, you could put up a statue of the fearsome foursome, right? That happened here in Los Angeles, but that was with a different version of the Los Angeles Rams. You want to create something with these guys at SoFi Stadium, the Aaron, for lack of a better word, the Aaron Donald, Sean McVay era of Rams football. It has been to a couple of Super Bowls. It did win one. So certainly, commemorating that, I think, is a great idea. But you don't want to go too crazy and start handing them out like they're 2-for-1s at Togo's. You got to be a little bit careful with it. And I would start with Aaron Donald and then see how that feels.
Yeah, you don't want to be the Yankees, right? Retire everyone's number. I think the Yankees actually retired Travis Rogers' quarter zip, right? I mean, they've retired everything in New York. So, I definitely agree with you. Let's get some of those Rams legends in. I want to see some fearsome foursome stuff, maybe some Kurt Warner stuff. But I definitely want to own the area outside of SoFi Stadium. That's kind of my thing as well, because you think of SoFi, of course, this world-class stadium with all these concerts. The Chargers play there as well. They feel like they're renting out where it's the Rams' house. So I definitely want to continue to get that ownership there at SoFi Stadium. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And as always, I'm joined by the people's champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.